Welcome everyone to the video. Welcome to the channel. Got a great episode, and like I mentioned on my previous episode or add-on to my last episode, this is about faith, and I was kind of struggling with the title. What to actually title this one? Um, I was either thinking "Blind Faith Needs the Dark" or "No Religion Can Give You 100% Certainty." So maybe we'll just combine both of them. If you like this video, like this content, like my video, please hit the like button. It's a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to continue to see content from me. And let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think of the video, my topics, what I'm talking about. Do you think it's right, wrong? Do you have a whole different take on things? Let me know down below. But let's go ahead and jump into this here. There's a big difference between having faith and having blind faith. And one of the reasons for this was I was watching a video and this person was just 100%, this is the way and there's no deviation. So I think, the difference between blind faith and regular faith is very, very important, because when you start questioning religion, what happens? People start getting defensive. When you start questioning someone's religion, they think you're attacking their God, or, you're attacking their family, church, the belief system that they grew up into. And that's not what I'm trying to do here exactly. I'm not saying faith is bad. I have faith. I'm not saying that belief is necessarily bad. And I'm not saying that because we can't prove everything with 100% certainty that nothing matters and nothing is worth believing in. That's not the point of the video. My point is that we have to be honest about what faith actually is. No religion that relies on faith can give you 100% certainty that it is true. I know it may sound uncomfortable. If you grew up in the church, you were told this is the truth. But you got to have faith, okay? So no religion that relies on faith can give you 100% certainty that it is true. Logically, it makes sense. If you think about it logically, it makes sense. If something could be proven without doubt, then there's no need for having faith then. It's simply, you just have the proof, the facts. Faith exists because there's a point where certainty just ends. You can read all the scripture you want, study the complete history, listen to people's experiences, and one of these days I'll tell you about my experiences. And I can't prove to you that what I experienced, truthfully happened. I can't give you facts. You have to take it on faith. You can look at tradition. You can compare different beliefs. Think, you can think deeply about life and death, God and purpose, but eventually you will reach a place where you cannot prove the whole thing all the way through. At some point, you're choosing to trust. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I think faith can be incredibly meaningful and incredibly powerful. It can help people through things that facts alone cannot carry them through. But we have to be honest enough to admit that faith is not the same as 100% certainty. And the problem begins when people take something that requires faith and then presents it like it has been proven beyond all doubt. That is when humility just starts to disappear. And that's when questions start becoming incredibly dangerous. That is when someone can say, do not doubt this, do not look over there, and do not read that. You don't need to question us. Just trust me or trust us. And that is really where I have the problem, because if faith is required, then certainty is not complete. That does not mean the belief is false. It means the belief is faith. And once you understand that, you should never let another human being use faith to shut down your mind. That's really what I'm trying to get at here. I do not, believe God gave us a mind just to turn it off. I do not believe, sincere questions are something to be afraid of. And I definitely do not believe that faith becomes stronger when it refuses to be examined. To me, real faith can handle those questions. It can sit with doubt. Real faith should be able to admit, I do not know everything. I cannot prove everything. I'm still searching, thinking, trying to understand. Blind faith doesn't do that. Blind faith wants you to be quiet and obedient. Blind faith will make you feel guilty the moment you notice something doesn't quite make sense. And a lot of us were raised in that kind of an environment, not always in a cruel way. Uh, just it was just normal. It was just how the family worked. You went to church on Sundays. It's how the church worked. You were born into a belief before you were even old enough to question. And that is important because none of us choose our first beliefs. They are handed to us or we're taken to church. Before we could think deeply, people were already telling us what was true. They were telling us who God was. They were telling us what God wanted. They were telling us what was right and wrong. And as a child, you do not really know how to step outside of that and examine it. You simply just, you're a sponge. You absorb. And at some point, when you become an adult, I think you have to go back and look at what you inherited, not with hatred or arrogance, not with the idea that everyone before you was, evil or, oh man, or, for lack of a better word, looking back and be like, oh, those people were dumb for doing that or believing that. You just with honesty, you have to ask yourself, do I actually believe this? Have I really thought about it or questioned it? Am I just repeating what was placed inside of me when I was just too young to challenge it? It's not rebellion, it's maturity, is what it is. And this is where secrecy becomes such a big issue for me now, because there's a big difference between, privacy and secrecy. Privacy is normal. Every church has its private conversations. And I'm looking at the, I saw a lot of stuff on the Mormon church recently. So I'm really like got that zeroed in. Um, every family has their private conversations, organizations have things that are sensitive. If someone is being, consulted or someone's going through something personal at church, not everyone needs to be in the room at the same time. Not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about secrecy that is built into the faith itself. I'm talking about a religion telling you there are things you are not allowed to read, questions you're not supposed to be asking, maybe history you're not supposed to study unless it comes from an approved source, an approved book. Parts of the, even physical parts of the church buildings, you're not allowed to even, enter, teachings that are hidden until you reach some sort of higher level. I'm looking at Scientology. That should make you pause, because if this is the truth, why does it need to be hidden from people who are supposed to be, who are supposed to believe in it? That is the part I cannot get past. If a church leader tells you that, you know, they have the truth, but then tells you not to look too closely, something starts to feel off. At least for me, if a religion tells you God is truth, but then acts afraid of questions, something will feel off. A belief system says it is the only way, but then blocks people from exploring, certain parts of it. I think you have every right to question that. Not necessarily reject it, but question it. Because truth should not be afraid of the light. And maybe this stands out to me because of the church that I grew up in. I I mentioned that I grew up Southern Baptist Christian. That's how I grew up. I don't classify myself as Christian anymore. I don't go to that church. I was kicked out of it. That'll be for a future story. The church I grew up in actually was not perfect, and I'm not, not perfect because they kicked me out. I'm just they're not perfect. I'm not trying to, make it sound like it was, that it was a perfect church. It has its issues. People are gonna be people. Every church has problems. Every group has personalities, and every group has things. It could handle things that could be handled better. But one thing I do remember is that the church, the building, the people did not feel like some sort of locked down, top secret world. As a kid, I could go wherever in the church, walk around, go to all the different offices. You can explore. If leadership or the pastor or minister, was not busy, they would welcome you into the office. If you had any questions, you could go, if they were there, you could go right over to them and ask them. I'm not saying, there was no private matters that happened at the church. Of course there were, but the faith itself did not feel like it was hidden behind some sort of curtain, or leadership was not hidden behind some sort of curtain. There was no necessarily chain of command we had to follow if we had questions. There was not this feeling that only certain people were allowed to know the real truth, while everyone else just had to simply obey it. So when I hear about religions where everything just feels layered, or access is controlled, rooms cut off, you can't go to this church, or you can't go there within this church, you know, you know, where certain questions are treated like rebellion, something in me says, wait, why? Why does faith need to have a locked room? Why does truth need a restricted section? And why does God need a human institution to guard information from the people who are simply just trying to follow him? That is where doubt becomes necessary. And yes, I'm saying this to cause doubt, not because I want to destroy people's faith. I want people to doubt blind belief. I want people to doubt any leader who says they speak for God but cannot handle being questioned. I want people to doubt any system that tells them curiosity is dangerous, because doubt is not always destruction. Sometimes doubt is protection. And sometimes doubt is the thing that wakes you up before someone else takes control of your mind. And this does not only apply to religion, it applies to politics, culture, it applies to media, it applies to family. Any system can benefit when people stop thinking and simply just obey. But religion is especially powerful because religion does not just tell you what to think. Religion can tell you what God thinks. And in the wrong hands, that can become very dangerous. Because if someone convinces you they speak for God, then questioning them starts to feel like questioning God. And that is how control hides inside faith. That is how human authority dresses itself in a divine authority. That is how someone can say, do not question me, and yet make it sound holy. I do not believe the truth needs fear to defend it. I do not believe God is afraid of sincere questions. And I do not believe that faith becomes stronger when it is protected from examination. I actually think the opposite is true. Faith that has been questioned is a lot stronger than faith that has never even been touched. If you've never questioned it, how do you know it's even yours? If you've never looked at it honestly, how do you know you chose it? And it can be incredibly scary if it's if it's something you've been doing your whole life. Questioning can feel like betrayal. It can feel like you're betraying maybe your church, maybe even your family. And even, it could even seem like you're betraying the person that you used to be. But questioning is not betrayal. Questioning is the moment your faith stops being something you inherited and becomes something that you actually will understand. And if after questioning you still believe, then that belief is different. It's no longer just something you were handed. It's something you have faced, you tested it, and you chose. And if after questioning you realize you do not believe the same way anymore, I don't think that's failure either. That's just being honest. Because the goal should not be to protect a belief at all costs. The goal should always be the truth. Question everyone, leadership, the institution, your traditions, the interpretation, because no human should be above examination. No institution is beyond accountability, and no faith should require blindness. And no religion that relies on faith should pretend it can give you 100% certainty, because it simply cannot. That does not mean that every religion is false. It means that every religion that relies on faith eventually asks you to trust beyond what can be proved, what can be fully proven. So be honest about that. Be humble and be careful with anyone who uses faith to demand certainty from you while hiding the parts that you know they don't want you to see. There's a difference between having faith and having blind faith. Faith walks without doubt and can face questions. Faith can admit, I don't know everything and I'm still searching. Blind faith can't do that. Blind faith requires you to be quiet, it needs you to be afraid and obedient. That is why I will always choose honest doubt over dishonest certainty. Real faith should be able to stand in the light. And if it cannot, then maybe it was never faith. It was control this whole time. So I definitely have a follow-up to this video as well too. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I really am trying to just get people to think, question. Don't just follow without questioning anything. Question everything. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Catch you in the next one.